So Agatha all along finally revealed the full backstory of Billy Maximoff, aka Billy Kaplan, aka Wicked, aka what the hell? So we gotta break that down because it's kind of freaking cool. But there are also new reports from insiders about where this is all going. And believe it or not, Kevin Feige is actually cooking one of the coolest Marvel comic stories ever for these characters. And we might actually see it way faster than I first anticipated. So let's get into that. And I want to start this video by talking about the boner. Last night in Agatha episode 6, they doubled down on the Ralph boner joke, and I fucking hated it. But I also have to be honest, Evan Peters was pretty incredible in the scene last night, and it was funny. I found myself laughing at the scene in spite of being really mad that they just doubled down on the Ralph boner joke. I mean, I'll be real, I was probably setting myself up for failure, getting excited upon hearing the rumor that Ralph was going to return and thinking of how they could tie Quicksilver and X-Men and the multiverse and all sort of stuff. You know, I started going crazy. I started fanboy dreaming. And the scene last night is so frustrating because it is funny. Evan Peters is good. I kind of like the scene, but it also happens to just be doubling down on one of the worst things I think Marvel Studios has ever done. So I would say thanks, but I hate it. Moving right along. This episode finally reveals what was actually going on with the teen, aka Billy Kaplan, aka Billy Maximoff. The episode shows us that Billy Kaplan was just a normal kid, family to Jewish parents. In fact, it shows Billy Kaplan having a bar mitzvah at the age of 13 in Eastview, very close to Westview, where Wanda's hex spell was still going on. Basically, his family has to evacuate because something crazy is going on at the hex. They are on the road and something ends up distracting them and they get in a car accident. This is where Billy Kaplan dies. Like, Billy Kaplan, the character, that kid, dies in the backseat of that car after the accident gets slammed into a tree. And we watch as his heartbeat gives out, and then we sort of hear Billy Maximoff enter into his body and his heartbeat start up again. And so it appears when Wanda was closing the hex spell and actually allowing the children she created to dissipate and to kind of die, somehow, some way, Billy was able to enter into the body of Billy Kaplan. Now, this is actually kind of similar to what happens in Marvel Comics. In Marvel Comics, after House of M, Billy Kaplan is born, and he is born to the Kaplans. He is that guy, but he is essentially the soul of Wanda's kid, Billy Maximoff. That later becomes a lot more clear, and there are tie-ins to like a piece of Mephisto's soul that was also within Billy and Tommy as they were resurrected. But essentially, Billy and Tommy are created in a fake reality during the House of M event. Then that event is over and they seemingly die, and in Marvel Comics they're just born as regular humans to the parents of the Kaplans, but they are the resurrected or reborn, or however you want to think about it. They are Billy and Tommy, Wanda's kids. That becomes explicitly clear later on in the story. And so this is a version of that they're doing in the show, right? And this kid was just there driving around in Eastview, gets in an accident, he dies, and it's like Wanda shuts everything off, and it almost appears like the soul or the essence of Billy Maximoff is just going out there and then enters into the body of Billy Kaplan. Now, believe it or not, this had been a long-standing rumor. This had been out there for over a year. In fact, it was met with a lot of backlash when it was initially like kind of released onto the internet. And I will say, as somebody that did find it kind of weird and distasteful when I first read it in the leaks, the actual execution of it in the show is much better. So I'm actually like okay with it. It was fine. In fact, it was better than fine. It was interesting, right? Like, it was cool the way they were showing that happening with him and his family, and him sort of having to cope with trying to keep his parents happy because he doesn't want to, like, you know, horrify them, but he's not really Billy Kaplan, but he's living the life of Billy Kaplan. It was frankly interesting, so I was okay with it. And I think something that helps here is the love of his brother. I mean, the first thing that Billy Maximoff says when he is in the body of Billy Kaplan is Tommy. He's like calling out for his brother. And Billy Maximoff is actually not motivated to go find his mother or his father. He's motivated to go find his brother. So the whole motivation for the character of Billy Maximoff, finding Agatha, walking the road, is to be able to bring back his brother, Tommy. And even though I hated the double down on the Ralph boner situation, it was kind of cool to get that character explaining to Billy who he is via the memories that he had of being a bad influence on Wanda's children. And so it seems like the show is going to go in a direction where they're going to go to the end of the road, and obviously Billy wants to find his brother Tommy, and his soul soul is probably out there somewhere. Maybe he's in another body somewhere, which literally could have been done by Billy Maximoff. I mean, he's that powerful with magic. He could have just, under duress of no longer existing, just saved his soul and saved the soul of his brother. And in fact, we have rumors just in the past couple of months that Wanda is getting a show on Disney Plus, and it's going to focus around finding the other son, around finding Tommy. And we don't fully understand what that show is going to be. Like, some people think that plotline will be folded into the Vision Quest show. Maybe it'll be a different show. We're not exactly sure. But that was a rumor that just came out within the past couple of weeks. But now we got to talk about this. This is a tweet from Daniel RPK saying that a variation of this story for sure is being adapted or set up by the Agatha show. And this is in response to a tweet that was basically saying, like, yeah, you guys have homework. The show is absolutely setting up the Children's Crusade. And that's really crazy. I mean, we already knew a version of Children's Crusade was likely being adapted. Like, that's kind of an established rumor. But it gets really crazy when you consider a new rumor about Wanda and Doctor Doom. So I talked about this in some videos and streams, but there's a new report that Wanda Maximoff, Elizabeth Olsen as the Scarlet Witch, is going to have a major role in the next two Avengers films. And in fact, she's potentially going to be the lover of Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. And the thing that's crazy about that is something that happened in the Children's Crusade story. The whole Children's Crusade story was about Billy and Tommy trying to find their mother, and then they end up finding her, and she's in Latveria, and she's about to marry Doctor Doom. And so this version of the Children's Crusade that Daniel was talking about, that this show is setting up, may actually happen way faster than we thought, and it might happen as a sort of side plot within the Avengers films. Now, I had been thinking that the Scarlet Witch solo movie, which is absolutely still a thing, I had been thinking that that was going to be one of the Battle World movies, one of the movies that takes place between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. But Alex Perez recently came forward to clarify that that film is likely taking place after Secret Wars and probably will have something more to do with the actual mutant saga. Again, our coverage of this whole thing with like Wanda and Doctor Doom has been very dynamic. There's been a lot going on. I've been trying to stay on top of it, but sometimes like a piece of news comes out and I'll be like, oh, that's really crazy. I think that means this. And then it's later clarified and I'm like, okay, so it probably doesn't mean that. So I am speculating a lot in these videos, you know, trying to sort of read the tea leaves and use my comic book knowledge and just, you know, the fact that I'm a friggin' sweaty ass nerd to be able to predict and speculate and have fun, right? I say all that to say it's beginning to look like the Scarlet Witch movie is going to be in the mutant saga. It's going to be happening after Secret Wars. But this report about Wanda and Doctor Doom in the Avengers movies, that's really intriguing when you combine it with the Children's Crusade story. And so maybe what Marvel Studios is doing is they're going to have a Vision Quest show that's going to come out in the next couple of years, and it will set up finding Tommy. And then in the Avengers films, you may well have Billy and Tommy and maybe more young Avengers, and they might go on some kind of an adventure to try to get Wanda to like not help Doctor Doom or something like that. Essentially, you could see a version of the Children's Crusade story that would then tie in to Doctor Doom, to Wanda in Secret Wars, to the multiverse collapsing. And I think that's cool. And I think that's a good move. I mean, let's take one step back here and realize that we've seen this happen with Marvel a lot recently. Like, Marvel doesn't have any plans to do Eternals 2, but they want to do more with those characters, probably in an X-Men movie down the line. And that's just smart. Like, X-Men is a bigger brand. More people like X-Men. It's super popular. So why wouldn't you just tell the story in a franchise that you know is going to get a lot of attention and a lot of eyeballs? Similarly, there was a plan to have the Young Avengers assemble, possibly even do a Young Avengers film or a Young Avengers show. But now it seems like a lot of that stuff is being adapted in other properties. Like, if this actually is something that happens in the next two Avengers movies, I think that's a huge W, because that's a better stage for something like that. There's not as much pressure on that story to like hold a lot of oomph. It can kind of be a B or a C plot within the Avengers films and actually maybe have some awesome moments, lead to some really cool stuff. It seems like the plot that was set up in the Marvels movie is going to pay off in Avengers Doomsday as well. So instead of doing an Avengers vs. X-Men movie or like another Captain Marvel movie that deals with that plot, they're just going to put it in the Avengers film. And the Maximoffs are really interesting and they are really dramatic, as Agatha was pointing out in the episode. And on top of that, I like the fact that there seems to be some tension between Billy and his own mother. He doesn't like when Agatha says that he's just like her. He's also not looking for her, and he doesn't really correct Agatha when she says, oh yeah, no, mommy let you go and chose a whole town over you and your brother, so you're probably not looking for her. It's not like Billy says, actually, I love my mom. No, that's probably accurate. So you've got one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe in Wanda. You've got one of the most powerful characters in the universe in Vision, and they have incredibly powerful kids that are doing weird, dramatic stuff, and that family drama could be really cool to be utilized within, you know, a subplot or a plot of what's going on in the Marvel Universe overall, especially if Wanda is as important as we're thinking she's going to be. There seems to be a lot of evidence that she's going to be a big part of Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. I have all kind of theories about that. My Time to Shine Hello said she's potentially the lover of Doctor Doom. That's crazy. Again, that's Children's Crusade thing. So you can kind of see, if you know what's going on from the comic books, you can sort of see how they're planning stuff out with these characters within the future of the MCU in the next couple of years. So I'm digging it. I think this is fun stuff. I'm not like super invested in Agatha as a show. It's been like good, but not like great. I'm not blown away by anything in there, but I'm interested enough to continue to be watching, and I'm really interested in more with these characters. I want to know what's going on with Tommy now. So this is good. Like they're doing a good thing here, and perhaps we'll see it adapted in a show and then put in the Avengers films. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.